Hi guys, this is Sheldon, and in this video series I will try to go over each class on Turtle WoW, covering all their changes, their new abilities, and how these might affect their capabilities in both leveling, PvE and PvP, as well as how they might create new opportunities for new builds and playstyles. And in today's video, we'll be taking a closer look at the Druid here on Turtle WoW. Alright, it's time to take a look at the Druid here on Turtle WoW and see what they've changed. So let's start off by reading the words of the developers. Druids were among the few classes receiving small updates throughout the years following our first round of class changes. The ability to equip polearms and the addition of feral attack power on many of the more undesirable weapons found on Azeroth were a great boon to their itemization. While already receiving many alterations before, the Druid class and all its specializations still had some pain points that were in need of some ironing out. Starting with their space spell and abilities, there have been many voices lamenting the power of Druid's two area of effect spells, Hurricane and Tranquility. The former has a very useful attack speed, slow component attached to it, yet its long cooldown and meager damage output held it back in fights with multiple enemies. In order to rebalance its power, we removed the attack speed slow and moved it to the balance tree as a talent. This allowed us to reduce Hurricane's cooldown by half, while also strengthening its scaling with the spell power stat. Tranquility is a iconic spell from Warcraft 3 as the ultimate ability of the Keeper of the Grove hero unit. Its World of Warcraft counterpart, sadly, does not live up to its legacy, as I've rarely seen Druids use Tranquility in vanilla. But at least they had the spell, though very useless. More often than not, it is not beneficial to use this spell when faced with a lot of incoming damage, as the other healing spells offer a stronger rescue potential. To grant Tranquility an effect worthy of its origin and visual, it will now affect all raid members in close range of the Druid, at a significantly decreased healing power and increased cooldown. Only Restoration Druids will be able to unlock Tranquility's true potential. Significantly decreased healing power. Is that a typo? And increased cooldown? Do they mean significantly increased healing power, not decreased? We'll have to see once we get into the changes. But they say only Restoration Druids will be able to unlock its true potential, meaning so you're probably getting some talents in the Restore tree that's gonna really amp up the power of Tranquility, I'm guessing. Baseline changes. Druids will now be able to undergo a challenging and expensive questline to learn the Swift Travel form. This form takes on a set appearance and has the same functionalities as any other epic mount, meaning it cannot be used in combat or indoors and grants 100% movement speed. So much like Paladins, Druids can also now complete a quest that gives them their epic mount, which is seems is a form. I think they've had this one for a while actually. Now that I think of it, I've seen Druids running around in this reindeer form, and I think, is that the 100% speed? It probably is. That's probably their epic mount, I'm guessing. Or maybe not, I'm not sure. Manual Crowd Pommer, oh, the famous and notorious Druid weapon. And battery-powered Crowd Pummeler, that's a version they have here on Turtle WoW where you can upgrade the manual Crowd Pummeler to an epic version. That does not, I think it doesn't really have charges on it. Or somehow you can regain charges maybe. I can't remember. Anyway, they made an upgrade for it to help the Druid's damage. Now increase swing speed by 20% instead of attack speed by, okay, that's a big change. Instead of attack speed by 50%. So 20% instead of 50%, and not attack speed, it's swing speed. Does that mean that the Druid no longer benefits from the weapon? I think it does actually. Meaning the haste amount is reduced from 50 to 20% and no longer functions in shape-shifting forms. And the ability now has 20-minute cooldown. Attack speed increased from 2 to 2.9. The DPS remains the same. So basically they're just removing this weapon from the Druid and saying you can't use this anymore. They're probably going to get better options now. But it's also fine, in my opinion, because else you feel forced to only have one weapon that actually is the best weapon for you in the game. And I'm like, I'd rather see more interesting itemizations options for Druids. So I'm fine with this change. And now other classes can still get the weapon and benefit from the weapon. It just won't be as strong. But then again, the buff, the speed on the weapon is like with the increased speed now makes the weapon scale better with abilities like warrior abilities, paladin abilities like your seals and your crusader strike and stuff like that. Is it the both of them that's been increased in attack speed, or is it only the base version? I don't know actually if the epic version here has even better swing time. But anyways, moving on. All ranks of tranquility has been reworked. Here is an example of the new rank 4. Regenerates all raid members within 30 yards for 87 every second for 10 seconds. The druid must channel to maintain the spell. So 87 health every second for 10 seconds. And then there probably is a good scaling component to this as well. Increased cooldown from 5 minutes to 30 minutes. Doubled the mana cost. Healing tick rate changed from 2 seconds to 1 second. So every 1 second instead of every 2 seconds. Baseline threat removed. Now affects all members of your raid instead of just your group. And ranks 1 to 4 now lasts for 4, 8, 4, 6, 8, and 10 seconds respectively. So the highest rank is 10 seconds. I don't see, it doesn't say anything about the spell power scaling coefficient. Oddly enough, because I think every other class that we read about, whenever they did a change to a spell, they also would show how it scales with spell power. But it has to scale, I think, or else it's still very, very weak. So, but moving on to Furious Bite, new spell, learned at level 24. Finishing move that costs damage per combo point and converts each extra point of energy into 1 additional damage. Damage is increased by your attack power. Cat form. Combo points will no longer vanish upon switching targets, but instead reset when applying combo points on a new target. So that's the same change as they did with the rogue. So this is really nice. Some quality of life. Regrowth reduced mana costs of all ranks by 20%. That's a lot, but it's probably fine. I don't know if this was actually a spell that wasn't used as much, maybe. Alkin Frenzy, no longer a baseline ability and instead acquired as a new talent. Refer to the balance section for more details. So Alkin Frenzy, let's just take a look at the talent tree. That's this one right here. Damage done to you in Moonkin form has a 10% chance to enrage you, giving you a 30% chance to avoid interruption caused by damage while casting, and regenerate 1% of your maximum mana every second for 10 seconds. This effect can only trigger once every 25 seconds. It's a very interesting talent. I feel like it's more of a PvP talent than anything. Because as a druid, as a Moonkin druid, you're probably standing in the background, not really getting hit as much. But it does say damage to you, damage done to you. So that can also be dots, and that's actually anything. And that's 10% of your maximum mana, but on a 25-second cooldown, so as to not make it too overpowered. But that's probably going to be quite strong in PvP, giving druids a lot of sustain. You could opt for only investing 1 point in this and still get all of the mana benefit, because I don't feel like the chance to avoid interruption is that strong, but maybe it is. I haven't really tried to make a complete spec, and maybe it's maybe there are other talents that are more worth it than this, but it's just to we'll have to see later on. Hurricane no longer increased the time between attacks by default. Cooldown reduced to 30 seconds. Scaling from spell power slightly increased to 9.6% per damage tick. That's an interesting way of putting it. Per tick, scaling per tick. Swipe, all ranks of swipe now scale with 8% of the druid's attack power. That's probably really nice. Is swipe actually only in bear form, or is it also in cat form? I'm not sure. Savage Bite increased threat from damage from 175 to 350%. Updated the tooltip to reflect this change. That's a bear attack, and developer comment Savage Bite currently acts as a way to spend excess rage without any other purpose. Balance out the remove dependency on the manual crowd pummeler. This ability will now cause additional threat. So now it's not just a rage dump, it is actually useful in terms of keeping threat on the target. Frenzied Regeneration. Healing formula has been changed for all 3 ranks to the following. Heals the druid by converting 10 points of rage per second into health. each point of rage equals to 8% of your total stamina. Cooldown increased to 6 minutes. I remember before the second batch of changes, trying to fight a druid as a hunter was goddamn impossible. It's like him jumping into bear form, using all his rage to get his health back. Almost impossible to kill him. I don't know if this change is a nerf or if it's a buff, but increased cooldown, at least that sounds good in terms of PvP. I think anything shorter than 6 minutes is probably a little bit too OP. And I actually don't know how this works in vanilla, if it's even in vanilla. I think it is, but it's probably a fixed amount of health that you get in vanilla. And here you are getting a percentage of your total stamina. So anyway, scaling on this one is probably nice, but I could also see this being a little bit too overpowered in PvP. Druids will now be able to use consumable items in their cat and bear forms. So meaning you can use your potions, you can use your, I don't know if you can use grenades and stuff, but at least being able to use potions and stuff like that while in your form, that's probably really nice for druids. And new spell, Bark Skin Feral, learned at level 44, with new ranks at level 52 and 60. Requires bear form, dire bear form, cat form. The druid's skin becomes tough as bark, reducing the damage of the next 5, 10, 15 melee attacks by 50%. Movement speed is reduced by 20% during its duration. It lasts 12 seconds and has a 10-minute cooldown. That's also really strong. It says only melee attacks. So what about ranged attacks from a hunter? Those are physical, but they don't not count since it says melee attacks. And aren't spellcasters already the toughest for a druid to deal with? Wouldn't it be nice if this would apply, like, imagine this applying to spells as well, but it's overall just nerfed completely to the point where it's not 50% and it's not as many attacks, but then in turn it would work against spells as well, so it's actually useful against the casters in PvP. What about 30% for maybe, I don't know, 8 seconds instead, same cooldown, and now also works against spells. Like the tuning, you can always go into the tuning and tune things down, so making sure things are balanced. But I'm just thinking about the Druid's toolkit when it comes to fighting priests, shadow priests, and warlocks and stuff like that. Because I think those are the classes that the Druid struggles the most with. But anyway, moving on to Moonfire. Duration of ranks 2 to 10 has been increased to 18 seconds, adding 2 more ticks to the damage over time component. All right. Insect Swarm duration of all ranks has been increased to 18 seconds as well, adding 3 more ticks to the damage over time component. And Wrath increased base damage values and spell power scaling coefficient by 5%. Enrage now applies a physical debuff for the armor reduction part of this ability instead of being tied to the rage gain buff. I am not sure what this actually is, to be honest. Tiger's Fury increased damage bonus for rank 3 to 35 and rank 4 to 50. So a little bit more damage on the last 2 ranks, I'm guessing. And Tiger Fury, isn't that the buff that you have to keep going? I think it is. Rake. All ranks of Rake now scale 12% of their initial damage and 3% of their bleed effect with the Druid's attack power. So some scaling for rank Rake. And now we move into Balance. Balance Druid. In the past, Balance Specialization has provided their fair share of indispensable utility and buffs. While highly beneficial to their group, the Moonkin itself suffered in a few select areas, both during leveling and endgame content. We set it our goal to uplift Balance Druids and offer an engaging playstyle to alleviate the hurdles standing in the way of our Druid players. This is done in part by allowing their 2 damage over time spells to augment their main spells Wrath and Starfire, creating a rotation between maintaining Insect Swarm, Moonfire, and alternating Wrath and Starfire. Okay, so that's why they increased the duration on Insect Swarm and Moonfire, to make it easier to maintain this rotation that they're talking about. That's interesting. New talent, Sylvian Blessing. Row 1 to ranks, gives you 100% chance after killing a target that yields experience honor to allow your mana to regenerate at 100% the rate while casting last 15 seconds. Isn't that the exact same as with priests? Oh no, that's spirit. That's both spirit and mana regeneration, but this is 50% while casting, and the Druids is, so it's actually nice that it's not just a copy-paste of this talent, but it is something different, and that's this one. Gives you 100% chance of killing a target that yields experience honor to allow your mana to regenerate at 100% rate while casting. 15 seconds. That's gotta really, really help balance rate early on when leveling. Now I really see this as just from this one talent, as a optional way of leveling. Because running out of mana as a balanced druid and sitting down having to drink all the time, that's gotta suck. And especially since you're not really wanding as a druid, so you badly need something to help you regain mana. And there's actually also a PvP component to this one, because it says a target that yields experience or honor. So also in PvP, I don't know if you need the killing blow. You probably do. Or else it's going to be really overpowered, because just getting honor in a battleground and then having this up constantly, that's going to be insanely strong. And this is probably also something that you would want to go for as a healer in PvP, just to get some extra sustain. And the priest version here doesn't say anything about honor. Like, this doesn't work for PvP. This is only a bonus, chance to gain bonus to your spirit after killing a target that yields experience. So if it doesn't yield experience, then this talent is useless. And then the next one, improved Moonfire, costs 2 points instead of 5 points. That's this one. Increase the damage and critical strike chance of your Moonfire spell by 10%. And if we just compare this to the vanilla version, that's a 5 talent point. So that's a lot of extra talents you now have to spend on something else. New talent, Guidance of the Dream, row 2, 3 ranks. Gives you a 70% chance to avoid interruption caused by damage while casting your balance spells. So that's this one, Guidance of the Dream. And I don't think that Druid has anything similar to that in their vanilla talent trees. And it doesn't seem like that now. So that's really, really strong as well. Not getting interruption or pushback on your balance spells. Pretty much all your balance spells is really, really gonna help Druid a lot in PvP. Balanced Druid, that is. And improved Thorns has been removed. I wonder if talents has been embedded into the thorns, or if it's just outright removed from the game. That was this one. That would increase your thorns by 75%. Yeah, that's just removed. Improved entangling roots has also been removed, and that was this one. So basically, is this a balance spell? Because if it is a balance spell, then the 70% applies to entangling roots as well. So in a way that you could see that as a slight nerf for specifically entangling roots. Not that I mind it at all. I think it's a great change, but I wonder if it is a balance spell and the 70% is applied to entangling roots. But moving on to Moonfire, moved to row 3, now has 3 ranks, down from 5, and includes Hurricane and Insect Swarm. Moon Fury, that was this one before, increased the damage of your Starfire, Moonfire, and Wrath spells by 10%. And now it has been moved all the way up here. Increased damage of your Starfire, Moonfire, Hurricane, Insect Swarm, and Wrath spells by 10%. But that's because you're probably getting your Moonkin form a lot earlier now. But let's read on. Vengeance moved to row 4. That's this one. Increased the critical strike damage bonus of your Starfire, Moonfire, and Wrath spells by 100%. But Vengeance was already at row 4 in the vanilla tree. So I don't know why they say move to row 4. Anyway, Moonglow moved to row 4, now includes Hurricane and Insect Swarm. And that's this one, reduce the mana cost of your Moonfire, Starfire, Wrath, Hurricane, Insect Swarm, Healing Touch, Regrowth, and Rejuvenation spells by 10%. And then we have Moonkin form. Armor increase has been reduced from 360% to 180. That's quite enough. The talent has been moved to row 5 and becomes available at level 30 instead. Players can now learn an improved version at level 40, regaining their 160% armor increase. Okay, so it's not getting nerfed. They have just moved things around a bit. So here we have the Moonkin form transforms you into Moonkin. While in this form, armor contribution from items is increased by 180%. The mana cost of your balance spells is reduced by 20%. All party members within 30 yards have their spell critical strike chance increased by 3%. Moonkin can only cast balance spells, innovate, remove curse, while shapeshifted. The act of shapeshifting frees them from polymorph movement impairing effects, yes. So the rest is, I think, the same as before. Oh, I can't even see the normal version in here because this is Season of Disaster talents, and I just want to see classic talents. And now it's cluttered with something else. So I have to go to Classic DB to see the normal version. And as you can see, there's actually some other changes to Moonkin form. The normal version here, it says only cast balance spells while shapeshifted. And in here, it says only cast balance spells, innovate, and remove curse. So they can cast some more spells while in Moonkin form. And there's also a mana cost reduction on spells by 20%. And mana cost of your balance spells is reduced by 20%. It says right there in the middle. There are some other buffs to Moonkin form then. But didn't they say there would be an upgraded way to get your 360 armor scaling? And I don't really see that anywhere in here. Did I read that wrong? Players can now learn an improved version at level 40. Oh, okay, I see. So this is just your... It's not a talent. This is just learned from your... That's probably going to be rank 2 of Moonkin form then. You're going to learn the upgraded version of the Moonkin form. This is just to make it so that it's not too overpowered while leveling, because since you can get it at level 30, they want to ensure that it doesn't reach its maximum power until at level, at least level 40. So that makes sense. And here we have Oldkin Frenzy. I think we already went over that, didn't we? Anyway, it can no longer be learned and instead is a talent in row 5, 3 ranks. Spell pushback protection reduced from 100% to 30% and now regenerates 1% maximum mana every 10 seconds. This effect can only trigger once every 25 seconds, not minutes, seconds. And that's what I talked about before. This adding more points to this only really affects the interruption. But it can be quite good since with this one combined with Guidance of the Dream, now actually gives you a 100% chance to avoid interruption caused by damage while casting any of your balance spells. So that's actually insanely strong. The only way to interrupt is to actually use an interrupt spell or a silence on a druid. Sending your hunter pet or meleeing a druid or doing any sort of damage doesn't really affect his spell casting. So I can see this being quite strong in PvP. Improved Starfire now move to row 5. And as this one, reduce the cast time of your Starfire by half a second and gives it a 15% chance to stun the target for 3 seconds. And that was up here before, and that's pretty much just the same as it was in the vanilla version. Just moved around a little. New talent, Balance of All Things, row 6, 5 ranks. Damage from your insect swarm spells now has a 30% chance to reduce the cast time of your next Starfire by half a second, and damage from your Moonfire spells now has a 30% chance to reduce the mana cost of your next ref by 50%. Okay, so on both effects stack to a maximum of 3, so that gives your Starfire a reduced cast time of 1.5 seconds, and your ref mana cost is reduced by 150. Does that mean you're going to get mana from using ref, or or how does that work? Is this just a free ref spell? I'm guessing it's just a free ref cast that you're getting. And that's this one, Balance of All Things. That's what they were talking about before with the rotation of Insect Swarm and Moonfire, and why they increase the duration on these two. So you want to have these 2 dots on your targets as much as possible. And the more targets you Moonfire and use Insect Swarm on, the faster these are going to apply these effects. So that's also quite strong. I don't know what the range is on Moonfire and Insect Swarm, but I can just imagine in PvP you are running around and pretty much just dotting everybody up, and you're gonna constantly get Starfires with the cast time reduced by 1.5 seconds. So that's gonna be quite strong. Quite strong for PvP as well, this one. So I'm guessing in PvP you would mostly just go for putting Insect Swarm on every target possible to get those really fast Starfire casts. And then there is a new talent, Gale Winds, row 6 to ranks. Your Hurricane spell now reduce the attack speed of enemies by 25%. So I think this is much more of a PvE talent. Not really that useful in PvP. And there's a new capstone, Eclipse. Align natural and astral energies. Critical strikes with Starfire increase your nature damage by 25%, and critical strikes with Wrath increase your arcane damage by 25%. Each effect lasts 15 seconds and has a separate 30-second cooldown. Both effects cannot occur simultaneously. So for PvP, you want to run around and spam your ref until you get a proc that increases the damage of your arcane damage, meaning that your Starfire is going to do 25% more damage, and it's going to cast really fast because you probably you want to have insect swarm on all targets. You're gonna get some really strong starfire hits. That's probably gonna one-shot some. It seems extremely strong. These numbers are they are up there. I can imagine something like 3.5, maybe even more K damage, 3,500 damage, something like that on a starfire. Somebody in the comments will probably, who has a druid, will probably tell me what the biggest numbers are. Please do. I'd like to see how far you can actually push this. And then we have Omen of Clarity, and that one now acts as a passive effect when learned. So I think before it was a spell that you have to put on yourself. That's this one, Omen of Clarity. Imbue the druid with natural energy. Each of the druid's melee attacks has a chance of causing the caster to enter clear casting state. The clear casting state reduces the mana and rage or energy cost of your next damage or healing spell by 100%. And as a buff you had to put on yourself in the last 10 minutes, so pretty much just like a paladin buff, but on a little bit longer duration. But now it's just a passive, so this one now works the same way, but you don't need to do anything. Once you have it, which is nice. And it also can't be purged off of you anymore. I don't know if it could before. It probably could. But now it's a passive, so you won't need to worry about that anymore. And I like that change for sure. I think that makes a lot of sense. Nature's Grace and Improved Wrath updated the talent description to properly show both talents' functionality. Improved Wrath now properly displays the global cooldown reduction that was falsely part of the Nature's Grace tooltip. So that's this one, Improved Wrath. Not only the cast time, but also the global cooldown has been reduced. And I think global cooldown, isn't that 1 second? Global cooldowns? I think the global cooldown in general is 1 second. Or maybe it is a half a second. I can't really remember right now. I think it's a 1 second, the global cooldown, and now it's just a half as long global cooldown, making it much faster to spam this spell. So that is really strong. And the Nature's Grace right here, all spell criticals grace you with a Blessing of Nature, reducing the casting time of your next spell by half a second. So if you have some crits with, say, for instance, Wrath, you get the 3 stacks of Balance of All Things, and you get a crit from one of your Wrath spells, which is also gonna trigger Nature's Grace. Then you reduce the Starfire cast by 2 seconds. And what is the Starfire cast? So it seems like Starfire is a 3.5 second cast, so that's reducing it to 1.5 second instead. But that's a really fast Starfire. Oh wait, actually, this one also reduced the cast time of your Starfire. So in total, it's gonna bring down the cast time of Starfire to 1 second cast instead of 3.5 seconds. That's gotta be really, really fun to play around with in PvP. There's some they made some extremely interesting changes to balance. I think it's really something that druids needed in vanilla. I don't really think that balanced druid, maybe on really high levels of skill, they were quite good in vanilla in PvP. But now with all the other changes, that's going to change, of course. And maybe they're too powerful now in PvP. Who knows? These are extremely strong changes, I think. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out in PvP. I really think that they made some very, very meaningful and very interesting talents in the balance tree. I think a lot of balance druids are going to be really happy with these changes. But let me know in the comments if you play balance druid. How is this? How is this in PvE, and how does this work for you in PvP as well? If you have any experience with that. Nature's Grasp here seems to be the same as before. Some of the talents seems to be the same as they were before as well. Except for natural weapons, that one seems to have some increased hit with melee attacks and spells. So there are still some really good reasons to go get Omen of Clarity and natural weapons and maybe some other things for even a feral druid when leveling. It's just old natural weapons. I don't think we went over this, but that's also been reduced to a 3-point instead of a 5-point, and now gives some hit. So that's really nice for cat druids and bear druids and druids in general, because it's melee and spell hit chance by 3%. So that's a must-have, even for Moonkin druids. Yeah, they really did improve a lot on the balance tree. So that's really nice to see. And now we're moving on to Resto. Restoration druids are in a great spot at the moment. Their talents allow for a it's my Danish accent. I can't pronounce this. Variety. Be it Moonglow, Regrowth, or Tree of Life. There is a little bit of everything for everyone. With the addition of the Tree of Life form, we try to steer restoration druids into the niche of the healing over time healer and would like to continue that path. However, there is a obstacle in that path we need to overcome. The anti-synergy of having more than one restoration druid in your group. We did not want healing over time spells to stack, as we deemed this approach to be too powerful. Instead, we opted for a way to allow other druids to override already applied healing over time effects and cause a direct heal. Okay, that's very interesting. I actually don't know when these would stack. I think it was in TBC. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think several druids could have more HUTs on their targets, on the same target in TBC. But this is going in a different, with a little bit of a different approach to that, as to not make them too overpowered, because in TBC, druids are the best healers, especially in PvP. And we wouldn't really want to see the healing from later expansions applied to vanilla World of Warcraft, because that's just gonna be the healing meta over again, and I just hate that. That was a bad system. It was a bad way of balancing. In general, I don't think my take is that healing shouldn't be powerful in PvP. Healing in PvP can really get out of hand fast, and then you have to create other ways around that. Then you have to mana drain in order to just kill somebody, and I don't find it a fun way of PvPing. PvP should be about skill and not who has most mana and most healers. New passive spell, Efflorescence. Learned at level 60, requires Tree of Life form. Anytime your regrowth and rejuvenation effects are about to be replaced, they instantly heal for a portion of the remaining duration. So that's what they were talking about here. It's whenever you override regrowth and rejuvenation, the effect will, the remaining duration will actually just outright heal a portion of the healing they would do. I think that's how I understand this, or maybe it's just the rest of the duration. And then we have improved rejuvenation has been removed, and this was improved rejuvenation, and that's just been removed, it seems. And I don't think 15% was that much anyway. And then we have Gift of Nature moved to row 3, and it seems like that's what they've replaced it with. Increase the healing effect of all healing spells by 10%. And that was this one. That was a keystone or a capstone in the resto tree. 5 points, and it's still 5 points. And then there's a new talent, Genesis, 4th row, 3 ranks, increase the damage and healing of your periodic spells and effects by 15%. So now it's basically the same as the improved rejuvenation, but instead of just affecting rejuvenation, it affects all your healing spells and your damage over time spells. And that's this one, Genesis, increase the damage and healing of your periodic spells and effects. Tranquil Spirit now includes regrowth. This is the old version, reduce the mana cost of Healing Touch and Tranquility by 10%. And that's this one, Tranquil Spirit, reduce the mana cost of Healing Touch, Regrowth, and Tranquility by 10%. And then there's a new talent, Asina's Bloom. Is that how you pronounce that? Asina. 5th row, 2 ranks, your Healing Touch spells have a 60% chance to instantly heal a friendly target, a amount equal to 6 seconds of regrowth if the target is affected by regrowth. Any druid's regrowth is applicable for this effect. So healing somebody who already has regrowth on them will actually apply instant regrowth to the target, and it doesn't seem to cancel the regrowth effect, so it's just going to tick on as it otherwise would. And that's this one. And the old capstone of Resto Tree, Swiftment, has been actually moved all the way up here. Consume a rejuvenation or regrowth effect on a friendly target to instantly heal them for an amount equal to 12 seconds of rejuvenation or 18 seconds of regrowth. And that was the previous last talent in Resto. And Insect Swarm was there before, and that's now a baseline spell for all druids, I think. I might be missing a lot, guys. I'm really not in the know with druids, so I'm moving out on a limb here, and I know that they did a lot of changes already to druids, not only for Feral, but for pretty much all specs. So there's a lot of new talents in here that I haven't seen before, and if you compare them to the old talent tree, something like Improved Enrage just isn't there anymore. And a lot of other things seems to have been moved around, and new things seems to have been added. New talent, Preservation, row 5, 3 ranks, increase the periodic healing of regrowth by 30% if a friendly target is affected by rejuvenation. So there's quite a big incentive to stacking multiple HOTS on your target. and basically keeping these HUDs going. So having several druids to help with that is really gonna improve every druid's healing output in PvE and also in PvP for that matter. I see this having synergy with the more druids you have, the easier time you're gonna have with keeping these HUDs going, and the more you're getting out of the druid. So I can see what they're talking about here with having more druids instead of before, where there apparently was some obstacle with some anti synergy of having more druids, since all the HUDs over time would override each other and not really benefit the tank or the guy who needs the healing. So this is definitely making it a lot more interesting as a druid healer, for sure. And the last one here, improved tranquility, moved to row 6 and now increase the healing done by your tranquility by 40%. So a lot more healing on tranquility, which is this one here, 40%. We still don't know how it scales, but 40% is a lot anyway. And here are some of the other spells. There's the Genesis. Here's the improved regrowth. I don't know if this is already the same. Is that the same version? Increase the critical strike chance of your regrowth spell. But now it's part of the capstone here, so you're not getting Tree of Life form without this one. And Tree of Life forms shapeshift into a Tree of Life. While in this form, you increase healing dealt by 20% of your total spirit for all party members within 30 yards. Your movement speed is reduced by 20, and you cannot cast damaging spells or healing touch. But the mana cost heal over time spells is reduced by 20%. That's a weird wording. And then still it's a shape-shifting effect, so it removes movement impairing and polymorph effects. But you're running around a little bit slower. So maybe not the go-to for PvP, but in PvE it's probably fine to have. And that's pretty much it for Resto, I think. One of my viewers, he sent me or he responded to a community post that I made, where I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the changes, especially to the classes that I do not know so much about. And here we have Stevie, and he says that in Classic, it's possible to get 2 out of 5 points into improved regrowth if you also have Moonglow and Nature's Grace from the balance tree. You'd have to skip Moonglow to get 50% Nature's Grace proc chance from regrowth. Although it may not be the optimal, it is possible to get all 3 in this version of Classic. Moonglow, Nature's Grace, and improved regrowth. They added regrowth to the Tranquil Spirit talent in the Resto tree, but Moonglow in the balance tree is still better. What you give up getting Moonglow and Nature's Grace is a lot, but for a hybrid Battlegrounds build, it could be ideal. I'm not really sure the optimal balance / Resto Battlegrounds build would be, but here's an example of what I mean. And before I show you, let's just finish this. Basically, you annoy the piss out of people by spamming Moonfire and Insect Swarm and entangling roots, while putting regrowth on yourself and allies to get Nature's Grace procs. You spend the Nature's Grace procs on fast healing touch casts or the occasional Starfire. Note, improved Starfire isn't available now unless you drop points from improved regrow, but the new Genesis talent in the Resto tree buffs both your HUDs and dots. Sounds fun in BGs, at the very least. And he sent me this build right here. This is what he was talking about. So you're getting Nature's Grace and all the way down to improved regrowth. So this seems to be basically what he's suggesting here. I do not know if this is the best build for, say, a combat medic or some balance resto hybrid build. I wonder if this talent is really worth it. It's a 10% increase to some of the damaging spells, maybe more sustained from Sylvan Blessings, now that it actually works with honorable kills, or just killing a target that yields experience or honor. So that's going to help you sustain. So maybe going something like this, and maybe getting Swift Mend. Just take a single point out here just to get Swift Mend. Wouldn't that make sense? I don't know. But there's a lot to play around with in terms of how you would want to set up a sort of hybrid balance resto build. And I think in general, builds like these, like hybrid resto and resto balance builds can work quite well in PvP, in open world PvP as well, and not just in Battlegrounds. if you've ever seen Druids like Stormex and Morpheus, stuff like that, those guys are playing the vanilla version, but with a hybrid balance and resto build. And it seems quite strong. There's a lot of utility and a lot of self-healing and sustain. So, but yeah, that's a version that could work. But let's move on to Feral. Feral combat. There are a few issues Feral combat druids are facing right now. Biggest contender is their relative dependency on manual crowd pummelers. Its item effect greatly amplifies damage for both forms and subsequently the threat gain for bears. To alleviate the need for this item for optimal threat, we introduced a few adjustments to abilities and talents. Furthermore, we lifted the restriction of feral forms not being able to use consumables such as potions, health stones, and similar. A new defensive spell, Barkskin, will help them survive the more risky and unpredictable situations during combat. For the cat form druids, we are offering a way to utilize the player's bleed abilities by making them interact with their main attack skills. Additionally, a new early rank of Furious Bite at level 24 will give druids more options during their leveling journey. So I think before I thought this was a new ability, but it's just it's an existing ability, but now it's just been there's an additional rank, a earlier rank that you get earlier on. So that's going to help them with leveling. And there's a new talent, Open Wounds, row 2, 3 ranks. Increase the damage of Claw by 30% if the target is afflicted by Rake. In addition, your Rip ability increase your Claw damage by 5% per combo point spent for 15 seconds. So that's this one, Open Wounds. Like 30%, that seems like a lot. So yeah. Feline Swiftness. Name change to Feral Swiftness now grants its dodge bonus to Bear and Direbear form as well. Blood Frenzy increased attack speed bonus from 12% to 30%. Now generates 10 rage when using Enrage. As a bug, formerly made it generate double the intended amount. So here's the Feral Swiftness. Still only speed bonus for cat, but now the dodge effect also applies to Bear and Direbear forms. And here's the Blood Frenzy, increase the duration of Tiger's Fury by 12 seconds. And your Enrage now also instantly generates 10 rage. In addition, Tiger's Fury and Enrage increase your attack speed by 30% for 12 seconds. And another new talent, Feral Adrenaline, row 5, 3 ranks. Suffering a physical critical strike while in Bear, Direbear, or Cat form, increase your chance to dodge by 45% until you dodge the next physical attack against you. This effect can only occur every 30 seconds. Developer comment, critical strikes are one of the many dangerous bear druids face when tanking powerful foes. To alleviate the peril after suffering a critical strike, Feral Adrenaline will offer a small buffer window for healers and the tank to react to sudden damage spikes. Yes, that makes sense, and it's also very nice flavor-wise that you would think a feline would be good at dodging, so flavor-wise it also makes a lot of sense. And that's this one, feline or feral adrenaline. Suffering a critical strike will make you dodge the next attack, increase your chance to dodge by 45%. So that's very nice, especially for tanking. It's and in raids it's strong. And also Primal Fury here. I think this was also changed, so it's a little bit different from the vanilla version. In the vanilla version, gives you 100% chance to gain an additional 5 rage every time you get a critical strike, while in Bear or Direbear form. And in here, it gives you 100% chance to gain, again, 5 rage anytime you get a crit in Bear or Direbear form. And your critical strikes from Cat form abilities that add combo points have a chance to add an additional combo point to the target. So these two have both seen some buffs. And there's also this one from the last round of changes. I think this was in the last round of changes as well. Removes all fear effects and increase your energy regeneration by 100% while in cat form, and increase your total health by 20% while in bear form. After the effect ends, the health is lost. Last 20 seconds. So this is also this is basically adrenaline rush, the rogue's adrenaline rush, while you are in a cat form, or it's a last stand for bear form druids. And it's also something that helps in PvP with the fear effects, and also of course in PvE where there are mobs or bosses that fear you. So much like the warrior can get out of fear now, druid can do this as well, and it's a lot of extra damage you are going to be able to pump out in PvP, since Adrenaline's Rush has always been really, really strong. So this is definitely really a strong talent. And then there's another new talent, Ancient Brutality, 6 row, 3 ranks. Dodging and attack while in bear form or dive bear form imbues you with the spirit of the ancients, returning 15% of your damage dealt as healing and generating 3 rage per second for 5 seconds. This effect can only occur once every 6 seconds. Developer comment, although dodging is one of the few ways for druids to avoid damage, it is not as desired as a stat as one would seem. While blocking generates rage for warriors, dodging does not for druids. Still, they cannot avoid accumulating this stat due to how agility grants additional dodge chance. This talent will allow druids to gain benefit from it by generating rage on successful dodges. And there's this one, Ancient Brutality, and that really seems quite strong for PvP as well. Returning 15% of the damage dealt as healing and generating some extra rage on top of the frenzied regeneration that you have bear druids are gonna be formidable in PvP, I think. And not only bear druids, of course, in general, druids are gonna be really, really strong now with all these changes. I think this one does the same as it's always done, intellect, stamina, and strength. And leader of the pack also seems to be the same. Savage Fury, and it still seems to be the same. Increased damage caused by claw, rake, maul, and swipe abilities. And that's just been moved over here and does the exact same. So yeah, just a few changes here, but some very impactful changes. And now there's an update here. They've already started to tune things, which is really nice to see that if they find something seems to be too strong in either PvE or in PvP, they are going to apply some tuning. So hopefully they have their eyes peeled for PvP especially. I think it can really get oppressive if some classes are just way, way stronger than other classes in PvP. It really destroys the incentive to PvP. I hope they continue to tune and adjust things. Insect Swarm applications of the same rank now stack when cast by 2 or more druids. This does not apply to the reduced chance to hit component of the spell. So it means that you can have several applications of Insect Swarm on the same target. And I see how this is kind of needed, because if there are more balanced druids, at least in PvE, that's going to fuck your rotation up completely in balance if you can't use or make use of balance of all things, which is required to get the benefits from balance and the rotation style. And apparently this wasn't stacking, so now it can stack, which is also scary for PvP. And Mighty Rage Potion can now be used by druids, and they talked about this before, that consumables would be able to be used while in different forms. So now it's made possible to use Mighty Rage Potion, of course, so that bear druids can get some rage to start the fight with. And there's another set of updates. Blood Frenzy attack speed increase reduced from 30% to 20%. And the effect duration is increased from 12 seconds to 18 seconds. And that's this one, Blood Frenzy. Reduced attack speed, but increased time. So 18 seconds instead of 12, making it easier to have more uptime on this. And then reduced swipe scaling. All ranks of swipe from druids attack power from 8% to 6%. So a slight nerf to swipe. Reduce the threat modifier on damage from all ranks of swipe down to 100 from 175. And reduce the threat modifier on damage of Savage Bite from 350 to 225. Wasn't that the one that was buffed before? Yeah, it was. It was the one that was buffed all the way up to 350, and now it's been reduced to 200 and 225. Improved threat. Now also increased damage cost by threat by 10% for 5 seconds after entering cat form. So for 5 seconds after entering cat form, you get a 10% increased damage on your threat. And that's this one, reduce the energy cost of your threat, and also increase it damage by 10% for 5 seconds after entering cat form. Interesting. Increase open wounds damage increase for claw from 5% to 6% per combo point spent with the rip. So a little extra increase on the damage on rip as well, or I mean on claw as well. And that's it for the druid. It seems I can't really go into any more detail on the druid, because it is not a class that I play a lot, and I'm not really that knowledgeable about them. But those are the changes, guys. I try to give some perspective on these changes, even on the classes that I feel like I don't know as much about. If you want to see more in-depth reviews, go watch the Paladin, the Hunter, Rogue videos, and the Shaman ones as well. Those are the 4 classes that I know the most about, and the rest is I know less about the rest. But anyway, if you like this type of content, guys, consider subscribing, like the video if you liked it, and then I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Turtles. Where are the turtles? Where are the turtles? Come on, guys, get out of here. Where are the turtles?